Welcome to the Channel Surfers, where we dive deep into the partner ecosystems, channel strategies, and the people who build them. I am John McCabe. I'm your co-host, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and co-host Jeff Lennon. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing fantastic. Much better than I was last week. So
Yeah, I agree. Me too. Jeff and I are both suffering from a little cold and flu season last week,
I
so
think it was
we're
the whole
recovering.
time change. I think it was the
Yeah,
whole time change. My
yeah.
body just went not
And
dealing
the
with
weather
it.
change, you know. So Jeff, today I'm thrilled, and we are thrilled to have a very special guest, Nelson Wang. Nelson is the founder of Partner Principles, and he's a seasoned partnership leader who has built partner programs from zero to scale at companies like Airtable, Miro, Box, and Optimizely. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Um, but here's something that impresses me more than anything. And Nelson, don't laugh, but um, he's member number one in partnership leaders, which I think is like the greatest title to have, right? And I'm very jealous of that. But you know, please welcome to the show Nelson Wang. How you doing, Nelson?
Thanks, guys. Honored to be here. Excited to
Awesome.
do it today.
Yeah, great. So Nelson, why don't you give our audience a little bit of a background on yourself and what you're doing at Partner Principles?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I started it because I've been doing partnerships for, oh gosh, at that point, I think about 17 years. And one of the things that was really important to me was to give back to the partner community because I remember working so many late nights and weekends, burning the midnight oil to go solve for something in partnerships. Could be a sales deck, it could be a case study, it could be a strategy deck, could be an enablement plan, right? The list is pretty endless. We do a lot of things in partnerships. And I remember spending a lot of time on that, those different aspects, and having it pull me away from like time with my family, with my friends. I have two kids now, they're 2.5 and 9.5, as you can see from the photo in the back. But, as I got older, I realized I didn't like that actually. And, when I was younger, I could make those trade-offs more easily. But I didn't want other
Right.
people in the community to have to make that sacrifice. Like, there's a way to still be great at what you do. You just have to be more thoughtful, smarter with your time, and really prioritize. And so, one of the ways I wanted to give back was not only share all the lessons and the learnings that I had in those years of doing the job itself, but also creating assets and templates and IP that people could use and to give that back to the community so that they, instead of spending, call it like weeks building a strategy deck, they could get there in maybe a few hours with a template that I had built them. So the template was like the starting point. And then in addition to that, just like naturally sharing lessons on LinkedIn in a consistent basis, whether it's like a short write up on the day or like a retro look back on a major win, et cetera, was my way of wanting to give back to the community. And so that's really what the driving force was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm a customer of Partner Principles, and I can tell you the PowerPoint presentations, the outlines, the structure, the framework, whatever you want to call it was amazing. It's so easy to go step by step and fill in the blanks and build your program from the slides that Nelson has put together. And Nelson, I wanted to share a really funny story. Like Jeff and I took part in this roundtable, this partner roundtable last week. Patrick Ferdig was the guy who organized it, and he was asking about like we were talking about Substack, and he was asking about like anybody on LinkedIn that you really know and who's really out there posting. And this one guy out of nowhere just says Nelson Wang, and I'm like, oh yeah. And they're like, what's his company again? I'm like, Partner Principles. So you were like, this guy was raving about your content on
Oh,
LinkedIn,
you big
and I
fan.
thought,
Big
yeah,
fan.
yeah, big fan. So it was like it was so appropriate. I'm like, oh, well, he's going to be a guest on our show next week. So, but yeah, talking about your content on LinkedIn, I mean, that you've got to have. I mean, that has to be one of the ways you really help to grow that exposure and that business for Partner Principles, because that's how I found you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really crazy. So I started doing Partner Principles full time as my own company about 4 months ago, and I've had 90, I think the number is 92 inbound leads
Wow.
and conversion rate of 41% the last I checked.
Hmm.
And all of it has been virtually inbound and referral, with the majority being just inbound from content marketing. And it's an interesting data point because what it shows is that if you give a lot of value to the world and you just try to help people and you do the right thing by creating really valuable insights, content, frameworks, products, whatever it might be, that it ends up gravitating back to you exponentially. And so that's what's happened is many of those first years, I didn't really monetize much of anything. It was just more about giving value away freely. And I still do that a lot today. Like there's a lot of things I don't charge for, like the frameworks kit I just gave out, because I think it'll help people. And organically, people will come back and say, well, I want help in these different areas, or I want you to go build this. And then that's like the next level up from there to be able to go serve in even more deeper ways and to help people. So that's what I've noticed. And whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, whatever channel you might use, I think it's more a question of like, where does your economic buyer and your audience live, where they will engage with the value that you provided them. And then that's where you can develop like a community and a business based off of that.
Wow.
Interesting.
Well, I think John and I can totally relate to the premise of why you started to do what you do. I mean, it's one of the reasons that, we really decided to do this podcast, which is to start to share information and just experiences and all the different things that we've done to try to, and also find people like yourself that, and by the way, I think you've got like a little over 36,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I don't think, follow this is probably going to benefit us more than you, with all due respect, but I did find it really interesting. And the story you just described, and I'll just share this, and then I do have a question, but it reminded me. So there was a book that I read a long time ago, probably 25, 30 years ago, Think and Grow Rich. And it fundamentally changed how I started looking at things and understanding what definition of purpose is. And I was I read the book in 3 different times. And after the 3rd time, I actually did more research on the writer, Dr. Napoleon Hill. He describes what you just described, which is if you give out enough, it will come back. It's inevitable. It's one of the, the premises of, if, the law of attraction kind of thing. But anyway, I just thought you explaining that just kind of really made a lot of sense for me. So I do appreciate it. And I actually listened to a podcast you were on last week. And I told John, I'm like, this is going to be fun. Your background, your knowledge, and the way that you're executing is just superior. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, on the personal side, what made it very clarifying to pursue full time is my dad passed away a couple of weeks ago. And, I think much of my life has been very conservative. Like I've always leaned on the side of probably playing it safe. Some people look at my resume and they joke with me. They're like, but you were at 5 startups. How is that playing it safe? But my point is kind of like, I didn't really lean into like going into things full force with like the courage that I should have. Seeing my dad go through cancer and passing away was clarifying in the sense of realizing like I should really pursue my dreams, because my dad told me one of his biggest regrets, he only had 2. One of them was not chasing his dream fully. And, he, in his words to me, inspired me to really think hard about that, about where to go spend my time and energy and what I want to go actually do with my life. And so for me, that was like a very clarifying moment that I needed to really, lean into this and aspire to be everything that I've dreamed of versus just playing it safe. So now things are much easier to me because it's not, there's that feeling originally I had around the fear of what if it doesn't work out, or what if people don't gravitate towards my business, or like, what if I have to, go back and get a job? Like, those are all, I think, normal fears people go through as they start a business. And that fear has gone away from me tremendously because I have so much conviction and clarity around this mission. And what's great about it too is like, instead of just thinking about it tactically as like my business does this one thing right now, what I'm constantly thinking about is like, how do I continue to make it even better? So like, instead of just doing the service, how do I level?
But
Yeah, I know I left off. I was talking about how like, it's like now I'm thinking about not just like one aspect of the business, but instead asking the deeper question of like, how do I continually improve it and get better? Like, so instead of just saying I'm doing the services consulting and that helps people, how do I level it up even further with something like, how do I build like an AI platform to help people take a lot of that knowledge and automate and drive it and to scale that reach and influence as an example. So like, I think that's where by being much more mission oriented, like it makes me think bigger and more in the long game of how do I build something sustainable that durably helps people in bigger ways. And that really excites me. And so that's the mission I'll be working on.
wow,
Interesting.
that's awesome. So I will say this: I went to your LinkedIn, right, and I'm following you. I had to use chat to get a summary of your about page because it was a lot. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very, super impressed. So you've done a lot of things. You've accomplished a lot of things. And in that vein, I want to ask. I'm going to steal this because I think it was the first time I heard this was from AWS. But when did you first kind of realize that this partnerships was your superpower?
When did I realize it was my superpower?
Yeah. What was like the earliest moment you were like,
that's a great question.
Good at this. Like this comes kind of almost natural, like that kind of thing where you just, because you're doing it and then you kind of have that moment. I had one myself, but I was just kind of curious because you have pretty in-depth background. You've been in a lot of different startups. You're doing a lot of different things, wear a lot of different hats, but all of a sudden you're realizing that there's this orchestration thing that you're able to do from a partnership perspective.
Yeah, I'm honored that you would call it a superpower. I've never used that word to describe it. I just feel like, I just feel like I'm constantly learning in the sense that there's always so much more to learn in partnerships and business in general and all different facets of different functions and roles and companies and technologies too. So the way I try to think about it is there wasn't like there definitely wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, this is my superpower. Like I still feel like I'm learning every day. But one thing that did help me get a lot of clarity is the shift in mindset of like the tactical playbook execution, which is what I normally would spend a lot of energy on, which is like, here's my playbook from recruiting and like put a lot of energy around that and get to the outcome. And like, to me, that was success. And looking back, that was the wrong way to do it because I would try to take playbooks from one company and bring it to another. And we all know every company is different, right? Like even if they look the same, like if you just take the top 2 social media companies or the top 2, cloud content companies or whatever it might be, right? They might look similar on surface, but when you actually go to those companies and interact with their customers, their internal teams, the way they go to market, et cetera, what we find is they're usually very unique and different in many different ways. And so the key is like not trying to bring this one playbook at one place and bring it over another because it worked prior. I tend to find that worked really poorly. What's really a big shift is getting away from that tactical motion to thinking from a first principles mindset of these are like the core principles around what great partnerships will anchor on. And then based on that foundation, we have frameworks that we can go implement to go drive success. And that type of approach is great because no matter what company you go to, even though they're all different, you can apply that as a foundational piece to then go build something great at each of those companies. So a good example is the principle of being customer centric. And if you have that core principle, that helps you tremendously in building a partner program because that flows downstream into all the other aspects of a partner strategy, right? Like your program and the partner personnel you might hire, the way you manage partnerships, the way you do recruitment, enablement, marketing, operations, et cetera. Because the lens around each of those is going back to the customer. And I'll give you a very specific example and then I'll wrap on it. But like a partner program is something a lot of people ask me for help on, and they'll bring up like 10 different partner programs.
Mm.
They'll say like, oh, this company has like tiers over here and they have points over here, and should we include this criteria, right? And that's very much looking at like other playbooks and then trying to embed it into your playbook of a partner program. But that doesn't work really well, right? Because that's not really what the program is for.
Right.
Yeah.
But a lot of folks approach it that way, right? What is a program really for? It's actually for, first, the customer, because when the customer goes to look at your partners, and in your program you have, for example, different tiers like bronze, silver, and gold, what you're really trying to play back is to the customer. The reason we have bronze, silver, and gold is because how it's going to serve you in your journey, right? So for example, if it's a consulting or services partner, the gold partner has a lot of great CSATs around their deployments. They have the capacity to be able to do this large enterprise project because you're an enterprise customer. That may matter a lot to you, right? The other is they have the capabilities you require to go do the project end to end, right? Maybe the bronze partner can't do ongoing support, but for a lot of our, big implementations with our customers, they need the ongoing support. And so that's like a capability they might need. So that's just an example of how then you're architecting the program correctly based on how to best serve the customer in a way that is easily understood by them, right? Does a customer understand a multi-layered point system? Like, what does that really mean to them, right? They probably don't. They'll be like, well, this is so confusing. Like, I don't know how this point system works or like what it means to me. That's a really good example of that point system probably more so serves the company, the vendor, than it does the customer, right? And I think that's where you start to lose people, is you lose sight of the customer. And so, of course, you want to balance this with also the partner and the vendor too, within reason. But the idea is if you start with customer first, you'll probably come out with a better outcome on something like that pillar of partner programs.
Yeah, that's great. I love that approach. So let me ask you this: we've talked to I don't know how many guests, and we've brought this subject up a couple times. Like, what in your opinion does it take to get from when somebody comes to you, or in your experience, building a program and having a company, having the executives of the company say, hey, we really want this partner program. We think channel's the way to go. But they're not all in on channel. It's like kind of a nice to have and not a real revenue generator. Like, what do you do to like get over that hump? How do you manage getting a program from like, we think we should have it, it's a nice to have, to like where it's generating revenue, like, wow, we can't do without this, right?
So there's something that I call basically a combination of quantitative and qualitative to persuade people. And in the beginning stages, data is sparse because or non-existent because you're just starting out.
Yeah.
And so you got to start with the qualitative. And what I mean by this is if someone is just starting out and they're just doing partnerships for the first time from zero, which is really where I specialize. Like I've done that 5 times. The first step is get the qualitative wins to go help them understand the value. And those initial wins are what I call partner market fit. And the reason that's so important is because if you can play back that story in detail, like at customer XYZ, we had this problem. Here's a solution we built with the partner. And this unlocked XYZ in business outcomes and impacted revenue, net retention, adoption, et cetera. And then, by the way, here's a video recording of the customer saying how incredible this is. And I have a quote from them. And this is going to be a public case study. And by the way, I didn't get one of these. I have 10 of these. So, like, is that persuasive? And what I find is people really lean in on stories because stories are memorable. They're very human driven. They emotionally appeal to people. And then what happens is when you get enough of those, then that, of course, adds up to being more data. And then you have a compelling combination of both quantitative and qualitative to go convince someone. So yes, we have customer stories. We have 10 of them over here. But also when you look at the data, we have driven, 5 million net new incremental revenue, 120% net retention. That's higher than, a cohort of customers without it, et cetera. So it's a combination of those two that makes a really compelling, persuasive argument on why invest in partners and what they can do for the company. And then, of course, you can do things comparably with like other companies and their partner metrics to be able to make the case as well. So here's another company, with similar lookalike profile criteria. Here are the success points they had with partners, and let me walk you through how they did it. And those are helpful too. But I tend to find like the first two that I mentioned land a lot more strongly, and then the third is like a nice cherry on top to be able to drive the persuasive argument.
I like that answer.
Really about. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say. So it's really about making sure you understand the organization you're going into, what that structure looks like, because I've always akin some of these programs to having grown up in a large family, the hand-me-downs, where you just talked about having a point system and you're like, I don't understand, like, what does this do? I don't even understand what this does for the program. Oh, it's great, and you just kind of eloquently put it, it benefits the company, not the client. So I'm thinking about some of the stuff that I was reading up on you prior to this. So when you talk about a principles first thinking, what does that look like in a partner strategy? And what are some of your non-negotiables?
Well, definitely the non-negotiable is customer centricity, because if you lose sight of that, it's really hard, right? Like you can end up creating like logic or, basically operate the business in a way that can be too self-serving. And when you lose sight of the customer, when you become too self-serving like that, it can be really challenging to run a great business. So that's definitely one that I think is really, really core to it. The second one that I really think about a lot is you really want to operate as one team. And this principle gets lost at many companies where people tend to operate in silos, especially in partnerships. And they basically will try to do everything on their own. But the reality is, like, for partnerships to really typically scale and work well, you want to think about embedding it into the DNA of the company in terms of the operating cadence, the way you work, the way you collaborate. And I'll give you many examples of this. But we'll just start with one in marketing as an example. Like marketing, for example, will do events, webinars, content posts, social media, et cetera, right? Could they go and get the customer case study on their own and go create the content, do the interview, distribute it to all the channels, create all the landing pages and the designs for it? 100%. But they could also involve a partner, have the partner who has the relationship actually go collect the information, put together the content, get the customer to commit to doing, for example, the webinar, and maybe even the partner will host parts of the webinar with them. And suddenly your workload has, dropped by maybe 70% on the same outcome of doing a webinar case study. And then on top of that, what if the partner drove X number of folks and doubled your funnel? And suddenly now you did 70% less work, you've doubled the funnel, and you're extremely efficient in the way you operate the business. And so that's a really good example of like weaving the partner into the DNA cross-functionally. And so what ends up happening is you're trying to inspire everyone to think about how they can amplify the business with partners versus trying to do everything on your own within a silo. So that's another key principle that I think about within partnerships as well.
Yeah, and that's very similar to near-bound thinking, right? Near-bound talks about don't silo any of your functional organizations in a company, like work together. And I really believe in that because you don't get results. What's that saying? You win with many, you lose alone. And if you're trying to go it alone, you're not getting the support and things you need, you're not going to be successful. So I totally can understand that, what you're saying there.
Absolutely. And then the other thing I would emphasize, another core principle I think about is you want to give value first. So a lot of times vendors or tech platforms will say like, hey, like we're excited to partner. Can you walk me into your accounts? Can you give me pipeline? Let's start measuring that. And
it's a turn off for partners.
This is a hard way to start off any business relationship, right? It's like give me all the value first. And what I would always recommend is first start with understanding the customer journey
Mm-hmm.
really clearly and understand the gaps. Once you know the gaps and you understand the business outcomes that it will drive if you fix them, then your partner can go, you can find out which partners go solve for that. And if they solve for something with a big business outcome, let's say it's a $10 million problem, someone will happily pay them $1 million to solve a $10 million problem,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have an ability for that partner to go solve for your customer pain, monetize around it, and you've given them tremendous business value in a new customer, in revenue, a project they can work on, etc. And
Yep.
so that's a way to give as an example, but that is very customer oriented. And then your partner, now that they've discovered they can build a $100 million business around your platform, they're probably going to push your platform a lot more, right? Organically, without you having to ask them to walk you into leads and accounts. I mean, it's just the natural flywheel of the economics of building a great business. So that's what I always recommend is, less on the tactical, get them to walk you into things to try to extract value from them, but instead give value first, solve for the
Mm-hmm.
customer problem,
Yep.
and then your partners will guide you from there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's how I've approached any program I put together. It's like give first, get second, right? And by giving first, you're going to see everything come back to you. And it's, Jeff and I have pretty good reputation with certain partners in the cybersecurity space. And I think we've both been highlighted by a certain managing partner that we know as two of the people that in the channel that get them, right? We don't just come to them with our hand held out. We're not treating them like an ATM machine. We're treating them as real partners. We're bringing value to them. We're bringing them into something that they could create opportunity with, right? So I love that answer. Now, we're kind of pressing on time here, but Jeff, I don't know, do you want to be the first to ask or do you want me to be the first? I'm going to let you ask because it's your thing. We want to talk about AI, and Jeff probably wants to ask you a question around AI.
I was going to soft pedal it. I was going to try to soft pedal it to see if you get it. But so because first, I mean, it is, I say this a lot. It is my rabbit hole,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else may have a conspiracy over here. Mine is every day I wake up and there's another 10 apps of AI doing X, Y, and Z. But when I think about, first of all, like you've written a book, you've built apps, right? You've grown to 70,000 or plus, whatever it was, person list. And what I'm curious is, what are you seeing around this incredible acceleration of AI and how it's getting embedded into the partner ecosystem and getting embedded into processes in general? And I'm just kind of curious, like, how are you seeing that change? And what are some of the positives that you see, but what are some of the red flags? Because, I just see some people going at it with a bit of a reckless abandon, for lack of a better term. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what are you seeing with the technology and at the big point, AI and that impact?
So I would say, let me start with what I see in the challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenges that I see are one, you definitely see many companies and folks that need a lot of help and guidance, and that's an opportunity. And the reason people need help and guidance on it is because you generally want like a framework to be able to understand where you might apply AI to get the outsized returns. And you have to think about the investment, the feasibility, the lift and resourcing required, and the use case that you're solving for and the impact. And those are all like aspects within a framework that you might consider on when to apply AI. And that requires a lot of thought. It requires a lot of scoping and discovery, design. Then there's the actual implementation itself. And there's the training, the change management, the ongoing support you might need. And so it's not always as simple as just turning it on and then you're off and running, especially in the enterprise and business workflow lens. It's more so about understanding how to orchestrate a lot of that to get to really great outcomes. Now, there are examples of the opposite of what I just said, though. There are products that are sometimes so straightforward, the value is like very apparent right off the bat that will just like be mind blowing, right? And I have good examples of this, but my favorite one is I love Gamma. And like Gamma, when you go into it, you create this deck that probably would have taken you weeks, and you can do it, really within less than an hour if you're very good at the prompting and the structure and what you're looking for and the visuals and the layout. And so that's an example of, that's the opposite of what I said. So there's the nuances. Of course, there's
Absolutely.
both types of scenarios that you can see, but certainly, like I mentioned, the former is a gap that I see pretty often. But again, that presents opportunity, I think, for a lot of folks who are consulting firms, SIs, even individual consultants, et cetera, where they can help lean in on that. Now, specific to the partnerships domain, it's actually really similar to what I see to most other domains within different functions and verticals. And that is the interesting thing is like, folks have different ways of working, right? So like, the way a partnerships person works is different than a marketing person. So being able to speak to that taxonomy, to speak to those workflows, and then have AI be able to be implemented to address that is where a lot of the magic happens, right?
Mhm.
Because AI's with deterministic guardrails performs a lot better. So you want to be able to guide it to certain data points or different systems or different types of agent workflows. And so that's really where a lot of that magic happens, is being a deep domain expertise by function or vertical, or even sometimes horizontally by platform, can be really helpful to get to better outcomes. And so within partnerships, as an example, where you might think about it is within the pillars of building a great partnership program, from step 1 to step 0, where a lot of the manual, heavy lift, very repetitive type tasks, where like if you were able to automate that or drive that with AI, would get tremendously better outcomes.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that you want to take a look at. Many different examples of this. And I'll give one of the ones that are most common. I have a ton of them. I'm not sharing all of them on any podcast because I'm actually working on an AI platform to solve for this.
Mhm.
But the most common one I previously shared was like in a sales process. So traditionally, like when you work with a partner, you would have them work with you to create like a sales proposal, an SOW, et cetera. And a lot of times you have to take notes on the customer call. You have to then basically write out the summary. Then you have to write the outline. Then you create, for example, like the sales deck or the proposal from there. Now, if you can streamline that with like the call recording, have that structured into a format with AI, and then have Gamma, for example, generate the proposal, you might have sped up that whole process from traditionally like a week to less than 1 hour for a personalized sales proposal, right? That's just one really simple example. But if you think about the customer experience, it's really game changing because you went from waiting a week to like see the proposal and the pricing and the way it's scoped out in the delivery, right, of the project. And now within an hour, you know exactly what you're getting on all of those facets. That's a pretty different experience. And so, that's just one aspect. But if you think about applying that to the 100 other things partnership people do, it's a lot of magic to go unlock. So that's the way I would frame it without telling you what I'm working on.
You've piqued our interest. That's like right up our alley. Like we are obsessed with AI as a part of what we do for our jobs, and how it's built into the tools that we use every day.
Totally. Same here. I'm enamored with it.
Amazing too, by the way.
I'm sorry, say again?
I said your application sounds pretty amazing. I'd love to see it in action.
I'm personally very excited about it because I'm do a lot of the workflows manually, and I want to use a platform that will speed all of this up. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm pumped.
Oh, and there's a lot of cool platforms. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation we can do offline, but it's those types of applications are actually spinning up so fast. In fact, we had a gentleman on, it was a while ago. There's a product, there's N8, was it N8N, and then there's Lovable. And people are developing things so quickly right now. It's unbelievable the velocity at which some of this stuff is actually coming out,
Yeah.
So
agreed. Yeah, it's amazing to see. I love it.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a side question now because you said something that made me think. So and because you've done a lot, you've worked with a lot of startups and you're invested in a handful of companies. What are 2 or 3 things that you look for when you're looking to get involved with or invest into a company that's partner led? Like what are some of the things that because I think there's a lot of people that as they're trying to get down this path, and I think AI is driving a lot more entrepreneurs, to be honest. What are some things that people should look to do? And I know customer centric is a big part of that, but what do you look for when you're evaluating a company or a partnership?
I'll start with the founder, and I would
Mhm.
say when I invest in a company, I want to invest in a founding team that has a lot of grit and is thinking about the mission in a durable, long-term way and
Mhm.
willing to play the infinite game. So um, they might say something like, this problem set is one I'm very familiar with, and I know that business outcome and the pain is XYZ. I know this because I've lived it for, the last 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, whatever it might be. And I really want to solve it. And I'm going to solve this. I'm going to spend the next 10 years if I have to solve this.
Wow.
Because what happens a lot of times when you start a company, and I've seen this with many startups I invested in, there's going to be sometimes a lot of change, right? Like the original idea didn't quite solve the problem the right way, or you have to pivot in some way, or you have to take advantage of a major market or technology transition, like AI. Obviously, for a lot of these companies, came out of their maybe mid-cycle in their life, excuse me, their startup life journey. So like the key is having that grit to go figure it out and being committed to the vision of solving for that challenge or pain, or recognizing if it doesn't fit, like you could pivot and do something else, but be just as committed.
Yeah.
And that's really what I find to be super important. And many times I've seen some these startup founders be successful just because they were able to grit it out longer. So sometimes it's also just about being in that industry long enough where you the learnings compound, right? The wins compound, and then you start to really see things take off. So
Yeah.
that would be really important. Obviously, you need a product that solves for the customer problem. And obviously, the more business outcomes that you are tied to and drive, the easier it is to sell that platform. So certainly that's a big one to look out for too. Third is also, for me personally, like being able to go into the product and see the value um, quickly is also something I look for. So, it shouldn't be confusing. It should be relatively straightforward. Like, here's the value you get in using the product.
Hmm.
And then the other is like, do they have a great team?
Mhm.
The culture, the personnel of folks that they have on board on the team, are these the right folks to go build a durable company? That's something I would look at as well.
Yeah.
Amen to
That's
all
awesome.
that. That is preaching to the choir here. We talk about that a lot, and I love that you think the same way. Like it kind of validates what we've been doing. Like the great Nelson Wang thinks like we do. So it
Or maybe
validates.
we think like him.
Yeah, maybe. So Nelson, we're about on time here. Do you have anything you want to promote, or is there anything you want to talk about before we sign off?
Promote. Yeah, no one's ever asked me that before, I think. So I would just say if you just need help on partnerships, just email me. I'm at nelson@partnerprinciples.com.
Mhm.
Always happy to offer advice and see how I can help out. And I have an open door, so I'm here to help anyone that needs it. I do help consult companies. A lot of them hire me for like a 3-month strategy sprint and help them build out the team.
That's
So if you
fantastic.
need help on that and you're a founder, or typically it's like a CRO or CPO, then happy to help in those areas as
Mhm.
well. But overall, just happy to be an ear for folks that might need some help on the partnership side.
And,
Cool.
and also, you're a member of Partnership Leaders. If you're in Partnership Leaders, that's how I first met Nelson. I came to him. I asked a question, I think, to the group, and I think it was about OEM partnering. And you and I got on a call, and you were so helpful. I think I still have the notes from that call. It was like 3 pages of notes, but you are very helpful, and really appreciate that you take the time to do that. Um, Thank you again for being on the show. I know this was very interesting for both of us. And Jeff didn't really know you as well as I do, and I think he when he started researching your background, he was really impressed and couldn't wait to have get on the show and
Like I said,
talk.
I had to use chat to give me an executive summary of your about page on LinkedIn. I started, it's like you see, about, and you click on it, and it just kept scrolling down, and I went, oh man, I felt I did a lot. Oh Jesus, I'm lazy. Oh my God. So, but no, very, very impressive. But to John's point, I mean, it's, I just, it is great to kind of hear the validation of the processes, the thoughts, the execute, how we're executing the things that we're trying to push and drive, because it's how I think I was able to get to the level of the success and things that I did, and turning different partnership stuff around. But I did want to bring up one thing, because you mentioned, so when do you think this solution, this app thing that you're working on, not to promote it, but I'm just kind of curious, like time frame, not to put any pressure on you, but
Yeah, I
next
don't have
week?
a hard
Awesome.
commit on the timeline. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Next week it'll come out. I don't know yet. Yeah, I'm still working through it. And I'm trying to also, I normally do time bound things. But for me, this is like a labor of love on this one.
Mhm.
So I just want to do it right. And for me, that means building something I'm so proud of that I also just want to personally use and get value from and make sure my community like
That's fair.
really loves it. So I don't have a strict timeline on it. I'm just working through it day by day and moving the needle forward and making sure it meets the quality bar that I want. So I have no idea yet, to be honest.
And you know what? That's so perfect, because if anyone's been on Partner Principles, your website, and looked at your work, you could tell that's the way you operate. Everything is done really well. Everything is precise, clean, gets to the point, and helps. Right. So
Yeah.
good luck with that. We're fans. We want to know when it comes out. So please let us know, and certainly would love to promote it on the show as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, you'll definitely be one of the first to be notified for sure.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Well,
that.
Jeff, that's this week's show. We appreciate, Nelson, your time and very insightful information you share with us. For anyone listening, we're actually putting together a brand new website, so stay tuned for the new www.channelsurfers.com. We're excited about it. It's going to be a little more interactive than the one we have now. You could reach us on our LinkedIn page. We have a Channel Surfers LinkedIn page, and certainly if you want to, reach out to either one of us to share a topic or request to be a guest. I mean, we'd love that. I'm John at channelsurfers.com, and Jeff is Jeff at channelsurfers.com. So exactly.
Awesome.
But until the next show, thanks again, Jeff, for doing this with me. And we will talk to you guys again soon.
Yeah. And Nelson, thanks for looking the part today.
Yes.
Oh yeah, happy to do it. It's my preferred shirt, so no worries.
We're going to go to Catalyst next year, and we're going to do a show on at Catalyst in Hawaiian shirts.
What a great idea. I love that.
Show.
Yeah, we're gonna
100%.
talk about 10,000 pounds of sand. Set up a little thing.
That'd be awesome. We got to get a palm tree too.
Yeah,
Palm trees coming.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you again, man.
Thanks, guys.